Alright. Well, Daiwada seems to think that we won't be able to tell the trajectory of the bullet. I don't think that's going to be a problem. The issue is interesting, though, because George Zimmerman used hollow point bullets, which, of course, are known for exploding or blah, blah, blah. So let's look at some hollow point bullets for anybody that doesn't really know what's going on with them. And I find a lot of people seem to have a misconception. Okay, here's some hollow point bullets. This is what they look like, of course, before. And you can see that they've got these little grooves so that what happens is when it hits, those will rip open. And sometimes those tear off and there's little fragments. They make shrapnel. But that's not necessarily the main point. The point is once they rip open, they become these little, Chinese stars of death. They're little, you can see how that would tear through your flesh when it opens up and flies like that. And then some of those things will fly off. But the central lead core travels like a bullet. Okay, now for some hollow point bullets, for example, in military assault rifles, you have a lot of curvature. Okay, but that's a 39 millimeter round right there, a rifle wound. So even then, you have this straight segment that tells you the path of the bullet. It's the hollow point doesn't make it impossible or even hard to tell where the bullet came from. Furthermore, the 9 millimeter hollow point type rounds do not have that kind of curvature anyway. They penetrate base gel 6 inches or so. Let's see, I could find what these guys said. Theirs were 12-inch penetration, 13.9-inch penetration in base gelatin, which is meant to simulate hitting flesh. And so this one, it seems like since it ended up behind the right ventricle, to have traveled in, 6 inches or so, at least. These look like pretty straight lines. These are bullets fired into the base gel. There's a big radial damage around the path of travel. Yeah, that's the point. But it's not like you can't tell what direction a bullet came from with a line like that. And it's not like the whole thing blows up. It's just these little leaves come down and some of them rip off. But the main center bullet, in the case of a 9 millimeter round, is pretty much just going straight. So I think we will know exactly the path of the bullet. Now, what it says about the path of the bullet right now is it says from front to back. But if you look more carefully, the track passes directly from front to back, enters the pleural cavity, which is the thing that holds the heart. And it goes through between a couple ribs, almost right in the center, through the right ventricle of the heart, which it's just barely on the left. The heart's a little bit there, so that makes sense. Then there is a little bit of an angle toward the right because it also strokes the lower right lobe of the lung and does an exit. I don't know if you've seen the picture of, so right there between two ribs, traveling a little bit over to about that far over, something like this, because it ends up still behind the right lobe of the heart. Okay. We are going to find out, and it's not very consistent with a oh yeah, I have a picture. I gotta picture. It's not particularly consistent with lying down. You'd think that somebody would shoot him down here, in the side. Somebody pulling their gun would end up shooting him over here in the side with an angle, with a higher angle. Dr. Descent, who knows everything about this case, sent me a picture preemptively about the physics or the geometry of the trajectory. So let me get that real quick. Just a sec. Okay, so this is supposed to show how you could get that bullet wound in the right place. But the angle is totally wrong. See, this shows why it's not likely. And also, though this picture makes a decent comic book cartoon of a struggle, this arm angle pointing back is not very natural, especially for somebody that just reached down to his holster, pulled out his gun, and you'd think that Trayvon would get shot in this area. All right. Now, here is, I'm going to go over a scenario again. Now, these scenarios, I don't think I know exactly what happens. I think I'm brave enough to say what it looks like to me, and then you're supposed to go, well, no, this 5 seconds can't be that way because of this or that. You're not supposed to bitch and whine that I say in the first place. So I'm not saying it's exactly, and that's why it's going to change and be modified. We're trying to keep up. Now, I've marked where Trayvon's body was. It's a little bit south of where Daiwada Man had it because on double checking various reports, I think it's a little bit south. We have a picture of that. Maybe I didn't bring it up. So anybody that wonders about that trajectory can just look at the documentation, right? It says it goes through the right ventricle, a little bit through the lung, and ends up behind the right ventricle. Okay, so Trayvon was walking, I guess about a mile, I didn't measure it, over to this place here. Now if I say I'd have gone along here. Now, so he's walking back from here, and the thing is, people like Jay Falexican, who does think that George is guilty of a crime, he thinks, oh, Trayvon had drugs, of course, and why wouldn't he be stoned? So I guess maybe something rides on the fact that I'm thinking they already said he wasn't stoned at the time. Why wouldn't he have smoked somewhere along here? Now, I would have, if I was a kid, I would have cut along this little path for sure. I would have cut through there. But anyway, whatever. He comes along this straight road. Now, some people say this is the community. There we go. See, this is the gate. It was closed after he had left by the time he would have gotten back. Some people are saying he walked up here. I don't know how certain that is. And then went back. He might have come in this way or this way. This way is a little more closed, and there's some, like some agricultural, landscaping type barriers that you could go around and through. But so he comes down here. George Zimmerman's driving up here on this road, sees him come through here. He walks along. Now, Jay Falexican is suggesting that George rode up on him with his lights, or just rolled his car slow. I'm not sure that George was particularly obvious. He might just have slowed a little bit. There's one way or another, obviously he did something to communicate that to Trayvon, because Trayvon told Dee Dee that he thought he was being followed. On the other hand, I don't remember, and somebody could correct me, so as far as I know, I'm saying George might have slowed down. That might have given Trayvon some ideas being followed, but then Trayvon runs because of the rain to the clubhouse. Well, maybe George is following him at that point and sees that running and gets suspicious. You know, never show fear to a wild animal. Runs over to the clubhouse. George finds his interest piqued and drives around here and parks somewhere around here. And then starts watching him. So Trayvon's leaving at that point, just still walking home. And I think they pass close enough that he sees this guy's glaring at him. This guy's angry looking. This guy knows he's a criminal. This guy conveys all of this. He starts running. Now, George also starts running, we know on the tape. So people, you're talking about where'd he go for 2 minutes? I don't know what you're talking about. 2 minutes. It's like a minute after he gets off the phone. Oh, that's right. George says he stops following. Well, George never stopped following. Wherever he was when that happened, George keeps wandering over in this direction. Now his father says he walks over to this street and comes back and is attacked here. Well, we know that's a fucking lie. Okay. I think what happened is he came up around here, the phone call is ending around here, or down here like Daiwada Man said, and he's knocking on the door, and he's coming down this way still. He's got his flashlight. So what's happened is Trayvon's run over here, gone around a corner, knows he's out of sight just from being at a corner, but if the guy's following you, that doesn't last long. The guy's following probably has his flashlight out. I haven't said whether that's true or not because I don't know that we know that, but let's say that's not unlikely in the dark. Zimmerman was using one of his two flashlights. Comes around and is walking around here. Trayvon can see him. He's approaching Trayvon. I think Trayvon probably dropped the 7-Eleven bag because running with that can in the 7-Eleven bag wasn't working, so he dropped that, littered that. Not a capital offense, but I'm really anti-littering. But I think not the most significant thing in this particular case. Puts the can in his well, I forget what it was. Was it in the hoodie pocket or in his front pocket? The hoodie pocket, I don't remember. And he runs over here to try to hide out a little bit more to the side with this guy with the flashlight looking around. But the guy with the flashlight keeps coming down there until finally he's right there, and Trayvon's like, "What are you looking at me for? What are you doing here?" Then the rest ensues.